I think the project's in a way been quite difficult because, not because of anything bad, but because the group have so many ideas and such massive ambitions and things that they want to do, that there was just 101 things that we could have ended up doing. And at one point the project seemed like it had just got so big that I felt like kind of like my head was going to explode with all the things that we needed to do. So we kind of pared it down and thought about what was realistic in the time that we had and with the money that we had. And I think we've come up with hopefully a project and a product and a film which people can kind of look at and think, yes, that's kind of things that I could think about or I could do within my life. And hopefully it's kind of made it clear that you can make things locally and you can source things locally, and through that the money and the pride, the sense of pride and all those things can stay in the community, and also through doing that you can contribute to not changing the climate and walking sort of gently on the earth as well.
If you're going to do something about climate change, do it now, because in 40 years' time, the world won't be as we know it now. It could be a lot different or just a little bit different. We're on a tipping point right now. This is the part where we can actually do something about it, but soon enough, if something's not done, we won't be able to do anything about it, and nature's just going to take its course.
Do you think we'll achieve everything that we've set out to do in the project?
After getting a grant from New Deal for Communities to help with climate change, Lower Keighley Young People's Group are on a mission to make products which are made as much as possible in Salford. The group have sat down and decided that as they have an allotment and skills in cooking, they're going to make soup.
The project that we're doing, we're trying to make it like in Salford and more environment, so like less electricity.
And what do you think about that?
It like be more helpful because it's like to do with the planet and like less. It's like more greener, so like less thingy. Like the smoke's like going to the air and like less electricity.
Climate change is really important at the moment, and we want to make the soup environmentally friendly as well as make it in Salford, so it's like local as well. So that's why I really wanted to be part of this group.
Why do you want to be involved in the project? What do you think you'll get out of it?
Well, it'd be great to know what we can make in Salford and how we can make it in Salford.
The group are off to Offshoots in Burnley to see how other people grow food. Phil from Offshoots works on a site where they grow in a permaculture way. It's a kind of growing which allows us to go on growing forever without using up loads of the world's resources. This way of growing influences everything which Phil does on the site.
A lot of people think the term bodging means to do a bad job, but it isn't. It actually does mean, the correct name for a green woodworker is a bodger, and it's Norse. What do I mean by Norse?
Nose.
No, Norse. The word is from Norse.
Is it like an old type of person, like a Viking or something?
Yeah, it's an old Scandinavian dialect that the Vikings used. It's from Norway. Norse is the old dialect of it. It's Norse, and it's botcher or tree butcher is the correct term. And that's exactly what they do. Like a butcher would butcher a beast, a lamb or a cow or a pig. They do exactly the same with a tree. They cut the component parts out of it to make different things, and they make the most amazing furniture from very simple tools that they can take into the woodland. That's the point. They don't bring the trees to them. That's foolish. That costs a lot of time and energy and haulage and all the rest of it. They take their tools to the trees and they make it there in the woodlands. They work in the woodlands. They're woodsmen or woods people. I wanted you to have a look at this. What am I holding here?
Manure.
Earth, manure, soil, compost. Thank you, somebody said that up there. That is what it is. Yep.
Decomposed fruit and all that.
Yeah, it is. Veg and fruit. This is not soil, this is compost. We've top dressed. By that I mean we've just laid a layer of compost that we make here onto the soil. And we've done that because what were we trying to do? Why have we put compost on the top? Any guesses? Come on, Charlotte.
Help it grow better.
Keep it dry.
Because you can have
in fact, the reverse of it. But I know where you're going with it. Yeah.
When it rains, it puts the nutrients in the soil underneath.
Fantastic answer, Paul. Absolutely right. Yeah, it does. We grow everything that we eat in that stuff. If we're losing that stuff, what will that mean to the human race?
no food,
No food.
and it'll
The end of the
be-
world.
and we'll
The end of the
die.
world. It's quite, I don't mean to be, I'm not ringing the bell yet.
How do you feel the session has gone?
Oh, I'd be very pleased. I'd be delighted to meet these people. They're really curious and and knowledgeable, and I've enjoyed the company enormously. I hope people have learnt a little bit that they might take back and speak to their family about and friends. And I don't know. I guess that the conversation going back will revolve around some of the things we talked about. So it reinforces it, doesn't it? It just cements it in people's minds, doesn't it? And I've thoroughly enjoyed spending time with them.
The group have some great ideas and theories about the best way to grow food, which they can bring back to their allotment, but they need to get their hands clean and get on with the practicalities of making their soup. But which kind of soup? That's a big question now.
Hi, I'm Leslie Lever from the Lower Kersey Young People's Group. This is part of the climate change project, and we're making 3 soups.
Tomato, minestrone and potato and leek. We've also got 3 tin soups of the same make. All the tin soups are in section A, and in section B is all a homemade soup. The young people are going to come in a moment and they're going to test it, and we'll find out which soups they enjoy the best.
Okay, so I just want to announce the results of the soup tasting, and it turns out pretty good on the homemade front because 7 people liked mainly the tin soup, like the tinned ones, and 14 liked the homemade ones. Some interesting bits and bobs is that one person just liked all the tin soup, which I think it's probably sort of what people are used to. So there's quite a lot of sugar and salt in tin soup, so maybe people have just got accustomed to being used to those flavours. And one person said that they could really taste the sugar in the soup, and that was why they'd gone to them, because they've got quite a sweet tooth. So if you like kind of sugary things, you're maybe going to go more for tin soup. But the homemade soup came out sort of more or less double. So I think there's definitely a lot of arguments for us to make our own homemade soup and carry on doing this project, because people will like it better, apart from anything else. So thank you very much.
What are you doing?
This is the end of the tasting session of the soups. It went really well, and it proved that homemade soup came up top. We've decided to do the leek and potato soup at the end of the project because obviously we grow the leeks and potatoes on our allotment.
It's all well and good to find out about good things happening elsewhere in places like offshoots in deepest, darkest Burnley, but the group need to find out about the things going on in Salford.
I'm just on the phone now to a chap called Ben Thomas from Start. I believe Ben does woodwork sessions up there, and I'm hoping that'll be able to help us with our climate change project. Hi, is that Ben? Well, thank you very much, Ben. You've been very helpful. I'll look forward to your phone call, and I'll come up and bring a small group of young people and a camera, and we can discuss the project further. Thank you very much. Bye.
We're here at Start Salford. Start in Salford. And some of our young people are going to interview this gentleman here, and I'll hand over to them because they've got some questions that they're going to ask.
Start in Salford is a mental health charity, so people with long enduring mental health problems come here for a break and to kind of improve their well-being and their confidence by doing a creative activity such as artwork or woodwork. So we're a charity that is partly dependent on money from the NHS, but also from the money that generates by Start Creative, which is the project that I run.
What do you make?
What do we make? I make lots of things. My background is I'm a furniture maker, so I make traditional wooden furniture. It's actually sort of traditional Japanese style furniture, but we also build spoons, bowls, we make a lot of chopping boards, we build outdoor classrooms for schools, we build yurts, which are nomadic tents, a bit like teepees, but kind of made out of wood and canvas. We also have a kind of a ceramic department which make kind of kitchen utensils and bowls, plates, cups, but they also make sculpture as well. Then we've got a visual arts department which does paintings and sculpture, and then we've got and they also do jewellery. And then we've got a photographic department as well, which does all the kind of the photography of the artwork, and also we sell some of their sort of fine art photography that they do.
Is there any way of us getting wood which is grown in Salford?
Yes, definitely. We work with the Salford Council, and we work alongside Clifton Country Park, so we can go into Clifton Country Park and take trees from Clifton Country Park and turn them into whatever we want. So we have to kind of speak to the council about which trees are in there, because they manage a large area of ground, and we can't just walk in willy-nilly and chainsaw down a tree. We have to say, can you have this one? Or they say, those ones need taking out, and we'll take them out for them. So a lot of our wood does actually come, the wood that we work with in there, does come from Salford anyway, so yes.
Okay. How can you help us in our mission to help the environment?
Well, I think we can provide you with some wood which is grown locally. So obviously that wood hasn't travelled any distance, and timber miles is something that is quite important if we're building all our houses and all our structures and using all our building material, and it all comes from America, then obviously that's had to travel a long way, and that has huge carbon emissions in the transportation of that material. If we can also, alongside that, allow the timber to regenerate and regrow naturally, so it's on a cycle, like I've explained about the coppicing, then it can become really sustainable and actually start it actually can become carbon positive rather than carbon negative.
Do you have any other ideas for our project?
I think the idea of making a spoon or making a bowl or making this eating vessel or serving vessel something that's made from Salfordian wood by Salfordian hands, I think that really fits with what I understand the project to be.
I think we were talking about a bigger spoon, weren't we? You know, the spoon to stir the soup.
Yeah. So rather than the eating spoons that people eat the soup
you know
with.
the big spoon that you use in the soup to stir it,
Yeah.
the ones that you probably get from Thailand.
Yeah, but bigger than that.
Yeah.
That one, but that big.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest with you, we're talking about an hour and a half's work to make a big spoon.
We're gonna he's gonna give us a demonstration of making the spoon and show us around where you make the wood and carve it.
Alright folks, so we call this the assembly room, and then we've got in here the machine shop. Now I've got one of the tutors teaching at the moment. So we've got two types of woodworking. You've got traditional seasoned woodworking, and you've also got green woodworking as well. Now green woodworking is the process of working wood when it's still wet or green. So it's you work it before it dries out, and then you allow it to kind of move in certain fashions. So you're allowing for the fact that it's going to move when the moisture comes out of it. This was traditionally used in things like timber frame building, because as the joints moved and the wood dried out, the joints would lock tighter and make the whole structure stronger. We now use sort of traditional woodworking methods of working with kiln-dried timber or air-dried timber. So this would be where we process the timber in a machine shop. So that's what it comes in at. And this has been processed by a chainsaw mill. So a chainsaw is run along sideways like that, and sideways like that, and we come up with a thick plank. So you can see there, that's the edge of the tree. So that's been in a kiln. It's probably been in the air for a year, and then it's been in a kiln, slowly sort of pushing the moisture out of it for 6 months, something like that, and we get down to something like about 10% moisture content. It's then using a variation of machines, a panel saw, a planer thicknesser, a bandsaw, a spindle moulder, turned into planed timber. So this is the difference. As you can see, much smoother. So we've taken off and we've processed this timber down. So this is an order, as I was talking about earlier, an order of oak for a load of benches for Ortal Hall. So the main tool with green woodworking, or the main sort of piece of equipment, is one of these fellas here, which is called a shave horse. So we use a shave horse for the process of, we have a round piece of timber in the round, like a log, and we'll split it with an axe, so we end up with these small sections. We'll then split it again until we end up with thin pieces. Now this, if we're going to do spoon carving workshop, is how we'll make our spoons. We'll start with a log, we'll split it until we have a nice sort of small section, and then it's called a horse because you sit on it. You sit on it like this, and then we push forward with our feet, which clamps that piece of wood down. So we can then work on this piece of wood with various tools, mainly a draw knife, or we can carve in it. We can start carving out a spoon shape. So if we were working on a big spoon, we might make it in this, and we would carve them out using various hand chisels.
Hi, my name is Grace and I'm here to interview Mr Cardwell, who's the energy teacher, and Mr Rastrick, the distillation teacher. Can you tell us who you are and where you work?
Hi, I'm Mr Darren Cardwell. I work at the Albion High School. I used to be the science technician here for 10 years, then I took over as data manager and the timetabler.
Okay. Can you tell us about climate change?
Well, it's quite controversial, climate change. I mean, if you go back historically, the Earth's climate has altered drastically over long periods of time. It's been hot, it's been cold, it's been hot, it's been cold. I mean, now we are in a period of warming. There's no denying that. But the causes of the warming are up for a lot of debate at the moment. There's a lot of issues across the world. People are saying we're causing it. People are saying it's natural function of what's happening. Nobody really knows at the moment. But personally, I'm inclined to think that we are having an impact on the climate.
Is there a source of power which you think could be most used for us to cook a pan of soup?
If it was outside, I mean, if you're looking back across the here, I mean, wood would probably be the way to go, but you would have to look at that as a renewable source as well. Are you going to replant any wood that you used, or are you going to use fallen wood? Solar power probably wouldn't generate enough voltage to raise the temperature, enough unless your solar panel is massive. Other forms of energy collection would be quite hard to get into the soup.
Can you tell us a little bit about solar power?
Yes, it's based on what's called a photoelectric effect, where the energy from the sun is absorbed by a substance, normally silicon at the moment. It releases electrons and that generates electricity. But you need lots and lots of cells together to generate electricity. And the one thing about electricity, especially from solar cells, once it's generated, how do you store it? Do you feed it straight into the grid, or do you have to put it in batteries and use it then?
What do you think will be the power of the future?
I mean, looking ahead, I mean, fusion would be the best way to go as a source of power, but it's quite hard to initiate. I mean, there was the big cold fusion problem a while ago. Nuclear power, we can probably do, but I mean, the waste from that is very dangerous and it lasts for thousands of years. The fossil fuels, they will run out in the next 100 years or so. I mean, we're going to have problems. Solar, wind, they're okay, but they do have the drawbacks. I mean, they don't generate all the time. Wave is the same as well. Geothermal could be a way to go, but there's issues with that as well. So hopefully, looking ahead, hopefully we'll make a breakthrough and fusion power would come online.
What would be the best way for us to use solar power in Salford?
Coming from Salford myself, I know that's quite difficult. We don't have, I mean, today's an exception, but we don't have that many sunny days. If you're looking at solar power, you're looking at quite large areas to base your solar panels on. You need a lot of square footage. I mean, you could use the council houses. There's quite a few council houses in Salford and build solar panels onto them. But, I mean, it's hard in Salford. You need large areas. You need lots of cells to generate meaningful electricity.
I'm Andrew Rastrick and I'm Head of Science at the Albion High School, Salford.
What can you tell us about climate change?
I know that climate change is the big issue at the moment. We're teaching it to Year 8 as well as Year 10, and that it's affected mainly by pollution, carbon dioxide. They seem to think it's also the hole in the ozone layer, but it's more the other thing. It's the pollution from cars, it's the burning fuels, and we'd like to stop it by burning less fuels.
Where does the water in our taps come from?
The water in our taps has originated in the sea. It's been up into the clouds, it's fallen into rivers, it's been siphoned off into reservoirs, and then it's gone through a process of cleaning to get it clean enough to put into our taps. It's come through chlorination processes that will put bleaches in that'll kill the germs. It's allowed the sediments to settle out, and essentially then the last thing is it's a bit of fluoride put into our teeth don't fall out.
Okay. How could using water around us help with climate change?
If we're using water from around us, it means that we're not taking as much out of the ecosystem, and using water that falls around us will help us so that we're not having to put chemicals in there, we're not putting things in that are going to damage the environment, we're not having to use energy to purify the water. And in school, all the taps on the upper floor, all the water from them comes from the school roof, it comes from the clean water drains outside, so it is essentially rainwater that's fallen in Salford, but we're not allowed to use it for drinking.
Okay. Why don't we use rainwater which falls in Salford in cooking?
If we were to use it in cooking, I think the biggest issues that we would have is we're in a very, very industrialised area. We've got a lot of cars, we've got a lot of people, so there's a lot of pollution going into the air. We've got a lot of things dissolving in the rainwater, so we've got carbon dioxide. Cars will give out sulphur dioxide. Buses which are on diesel give out quite a lot of sulphur dioxide, which makes it acidic. And there could also be other chemicals that are dissolved in it that make it unsuitable for eating or drinking.
How could we purify the water using things we could buy easily or find around the house?
To purify it in terms of getting the water to look clean, it could be simply a case of pouring it through a sand trap or pouring it through a very, very thin filter made out of some sort of tissue paper. In terms of purifying it chemically, the only real way to do it is to distill the water, so to put it into some sort of container which you then heat, drive the water up a column, and when the water condenses and falls back, it's only the water that's falling back, and any of the impurities are left in the container that you started with.
Could you help us to make something to purify water?
I can certainly try. The problem that we have is that unless we're willing to use gas or we're willing to use electricity to warm the water up, the only other way to warm it up is to use a sort of convex or concave mirror that will focus the sun's rays onto your container that you can use then to boil the water, like little kids when they burn things with magnifying glasses. The issue with that is we're in Salford, and getting the sun that intense happens on about 2 days a year maybe, but we can certainly try.
Okay. How could we test that the water is suitable for humans to consume?
There are water testing kits that you can get, so people who do outward bounds things, people who are adventurers who have no way of taking enough water with them to drink, can test things like river water or stream water to see if it's pure enough for them to drink. The kits you need to buy in, and obviously they're not going to be produced in Salford. What we could look at is possibly seeing what chemicals are in them and seeing if we've got them in our store, but again, they don't originate in Salford, it might just be a little bit cheaper.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome.
Just as a group were worrying that they would find no climate change experts, along came Ian Fothergill to tell us the science bit.
Yes, my name's Ian Fothergill. I'm a research physicist and an inventor, and my biggest interest and experience has been in energy. Climate change is a very complex thing. It's something which people tend to frown upon, but it's been absolutely essential for our survival. The Earth is 4.5 billion years old. At that time, the atmospheric conditions were not able to support life. Soon after formation, there were organic materials evolved, bacteria, which were able to absorb carbon dioxide, which was the major gas on the Earth at that time. By a process of photosynthesis, that carbon dioxide was converted into oxygen, and you get a progressive increase in the content of oxygen in the atmosphere. As oxygen increased, so life forms increased, and it was these life forms which eventually turned the atmosphere, and through various other processes, into the condition which it is, where it can support human life. We are generating too much CO2 because of our dependence on fossil fuels. There's a lot of effort which is going in to try and move from these fossil fuels, or at least accommodate them. Where you've got control of things, if you're in a household, then one of the most effective and cheapest ways of having an impact is insulation. Cavity wall insulation, if you've got cavity walls in your house, and loft insulation. Using fluorescent lighting rather than incandescent lighting, albeit they're somewhat more expensive these days, but they're getting cheaper. Not drinking bottled water. Bottled water costs about 1,000 times more per unit volume than tap water, and it is no better for you than tap water.